You guys have absolutely loved the content that we have been putting out on drifting. We received quite a few messages on how to get started or some tips and tricks that you're looking for. So we want to make this video. Now this is not an end-all guide to drifting, but this will give you everything you need to know to get started doing your own research from here. So let's get into it. What events to look for? Going to an event and actually driving it is absolutely the most intimidating part of any motorsport. If you're sitting there wanting to start drifting, but you are scared and nervous, well, let me tell you, that is completely and totally normal. I was super terrified before my first event, and I still get butterflies every time I start prepping the car for a drift day. You want to find an event that is catered to new drivers or open to all sorts of skill levels. Ideally, if you can find one, you should look for a learner day where there will be instructors to help you learn, like a drift day 101 sort of thing. If you don't have one of those near you, then I would suggest finding a test and tune sort of event or just open drifting with no competition element, because frankly, you're just not ready for that just yet.
He wasn't ready!
My best advice is to find a local group that does drifting near you and go spectate an event or two. Just go watch. This will help you see what the vibe is like and what is happening on track. You can also use this as a time to go up to staff or some drivers and just let them know you'd like to come and drive one of these events and ask if there's anything you should know. 99% of the time, people involved in drifting will welcome new drivers to help you out, because we want to see more cars out on track and people loving the sport. You will want to look at what the event requires for tech inspection as well. That might require a certain safety rating for your helmet, you might need to have a fire extinguisher, maybe require water instead of coolant in your car. You will also most likely need your battery terminals covered and reservoir socks or rags over any reservoirs. You gotta put yourself out there though and get a little out of your comfort zone. I guarantee if you do that, you'll have a better experience. Now, one piece of advice as a new driver though is recognize that you're new and take feedback as it is given to you. Don't come in thinking you know everything, because frankly, you don't. And you're new to this and you want to learn, you gotta embrace that. But beyond all, you gotta remember this is supposed to be fun. At first you'll be learning, so don't get discouraged. Your first day might consist of you in the skid pad or learner area for most or just all of the day doing donuts or figure eights. And that's totally cool because we all start there. What classes will you be in? If there are classes, you'd ideally be in a learner class or the beginner group. Don't get discouraged with this because you're new and want to learn even though you're labeled as a newbie, because, well, that's what you are. If there aren't any classes and everyone is just, well, lumped together on grid, that's cool too. You might feel bad spinning out and holding up the line, but that's part of learning. Sitting on grid next to a very seasoned driver with a dope car, it can be kind of scary and intimidating, but you'll be there too if you stick with it. Everyone started in the same spot, remember that. Those people who are experienced on grid, they'll be your biggest fans seeing you improve every run. Also, pay attention and ask questions in that driver's meeting in the morning. This is where the event will go over safety and any particular event or track rules. Everyone has to abide by these, so if you are unsure, just ask. You don't want to be the new guy out there who doesn't even know what the rules are. What are some good starter cars? You want a car that has an engine in the front, a manual transmission, and sends power to the rear. That's the basic recipe to stick to. You can get there a few different ways, but here are a few recommendations on what is somewhat readily available and not out there for an absolute fortune. 350Zs, E36s, E46s, Mustang GTs, and the FRS BRZ platform are great. There are still 240s out there that aren't a fortune, but you're gonna have to do some digging. I'd also recommend not buying someone's drift project or previous drift car. Get something as stock as possible, even though it might be tempting to get some previous drift car. Get that stock car, put some coilovers on it, get a bucket seat, and make sure the car has an LSD or welded differential. Keep it simple. Focus on driving, not on building. The best mods you can do outside of coilovers, a seat, and a diff is really just going to be maintenance. Change your fluids and replace worn-out bushings. Use any extra money you have on tires to practice on. Okay, so now you have a car and you have an idea of what event you're aiming for. Next step is to get your car set up for that event. If all you changed in your car was coilovers, just go and get as close to a factory alignment to start out with if you want to keep things simple, which is what I recommend. It won't hold you back a ton and you'll have a good baseline to start with. If you have some adjustment in the factory arms or have aftermarket arms, there are a few setup tips that can help a bit. Toe adjustment. Toe in has the front of your wheels pointing in towards the chassis, and toe out has the front of your wheels pointing out away from the chassis. I would recommend zero toe to start with if you're street driving your car. If you are not street driving your car, or you can live with some accelerated tire wear, a small amount of toe out in the front can help with the turn in of the car when entering the drift. This isn't ideal for highway driving and the car will want to wander a little bit, just kind of as a heads up. Leave the rear toe at zero to start with. Caster adjustment. Caster is best described as how your wheels sit in the wheel well of your car. Positive caster has your wheels further towards the front of the car, and negative caster would be the opposite. The real movement happening here is the angle of the coilover and steering geometry on the car, not just where your wheel is at. Positive caster can aid in your steering stability in a straight line at high speed, such as when you're building speed towards a corner. It also really helps with self-steer. When drifting, you'll learn that self-steer, that's when the steering wheel turns back on its own coming out of a corner, is very important. This is where you see drivers let the steering wheel slide through their hands in a controlled way. Do not let go of the wheel completely. It looks kind of dumb and it's a bad practice because it can be dangerous. Positive caster is good, just don't have so much that your front wheels clip off your bumper. I've been there. Camber adjustment. Camber is how your wheels tilt in towards the car and out on the vertical plane. Negative camber is what most of you are familiar with since there are plenty of extreme examples of this in the car scene, the wheels tilted so far in towards the car. For drifting, some negative camber in the front will help with tire grip while at full lock. This is because as your wheels turn, the leading wheel will gain positive camber. If you are just starting out, some negative camber in the rear will help reduce your grip and let you slide the rear end out a bit. This is especially helpful if you have a lower power car to start with. When I say add in a little negative camber in the front or rear, I'm talking like 4 degrees to start with. Negative camber in the rear will stop you from using the whole tire though while drifting, so you'll need to flip your tires to get the most life out of them. Ride height adjustment. A lower car not only looks cooler, but will lower your center of gravity and allow for less body roll. When you are first starting out, I would recommend resisting the urge to go super low because you will most likely go off track a few times and this will minimize damage to your car. Trust me, I guarantee you, you're going to do the Baja 1000s through some dirt off the track. Once you get the hang of it though, you can go lower and look cooler. An important note for any setup and before any event is to do a bolt check on your car. No matter how experienced you are, how often you've driven, touch every nut and bolt you can to make sure nothing is loose and you don't have any broken parts that need to be replaced. If you don't do this, you can have a costly failure on track because one bolt backed out that you could have caught with a nut and bolt check. Wheel choice. When it comes to wheels, there is not an absolute best option. Drifting at its core is really about personal expression and style. If possible, a lighter weight wheel will have a lot of benefits to you as a new driver. If you have a lower power car, it will be way easier to get the wheels spinning, keep the wheel speed up, and also lock up the rears with a handbrake. Lightweight wheels are also easier on your power steering system and your drivetrain components since there's less mass moving around. You can actually sort our website by weight when it comes to wheels, so that can help you out when you're browsing. Having big, cool wheels have the trade-offs of the weight and clearance, but could be the look you're going for. No matter what style or size you go with though, you want to make sure that you choose some wheels that are known to hold up to some abuse. Do some research and learn if people have tracked or drifted cars with the brand and possibly the model that you're going for. You don't want to have a slight bump with a rumble strip ruin your day by shattering a wheel. Tire selection. Tires are extremely important when it comes to drifting. You're constantly going to be chasing a balance of grip and tire life. It's not about just sliding around, you're actually going to want grip. There's not one perfect tire for drifting though. Some of the key factors are your car's power level, how much your car weighs, your alignment setup, your driving style, and the track surface conditions. All of these will influence tire grip and tire life. When you're starting out, consistency can help with learning, so I would recommend finding a brand and model of tire that you feel like works best and sticking to it. I'm a big fan of tires with a tread wear rating around 300 for the front and rear to start with. You can definitely go a little grippier in the front to avoid understeer, so if you can spend a little extra, I would spend it there. In general, some examples of tires to use when starting out are the Kenda KR20A, the Ironman iMove Gen 2, and GT Radial Champiro HPY. Air pressure is something important to pay attention to with your tires though. You can play with air pressure to give yourself more grip by decreasing air pressure or less grip by increasing air pressure. Heat cycling your tires is important when you're starting out because this will usually help them last longer at the expense of some grip. Go out, drive a few laps, then come in and let your tires cool way down. If you feel like they are way too icy, then lower that air pressure down and see how it feels. Suspension. Being on air and airing out might look cool, but for reliability and adjustability, get yourself a good set of coilovers with a spring rate that works best for your chassis. If you want to know what works, I would yet again encourage you to do some research for your specific platform. Here's an example. An 8K spring rate in the front of a 240SX can work great, but you'll want something like a 20K or 22K in an IS300. This is because of how different the suspension geometry is and the weight on those cars. Generally, you'll want a little stiffer suspension setup in the front than in the rear for some more grip back there. What should you pack for your drift day? So now your car's all set up and you're registered for your first event. Pretty exciting, big things are happening.
Yeah, boy.
Packing the right stuff for the event is going to be your next step. Spare wheels and tires are a must. Sounds like a no-brainer, but I'm gonna put it in here. There's a tire change at the track. You can bring extra tires that aren't mounted and have them done at the track, either by a professional there, we can pay to do it, or it might be a DIY thing, so I wanna learn how to use it. You'll also want a floor jack, jack stands, or whatever tools you want to use to change your wheels in your car. A battery-powered impact is an absolute must here because it makes your life way easier. I'd also recommend bringing the basic hand tools you need to work on your car. Gloves are a great thing to bring since changing wheels and working on cars gets dirty. Also, a tarp to put on the ground is nice as well. The reason I'm saying this is because you're gonna have to work on your car. You might get dirty, you don't want to bring all that dirt and stuff into your interior. You want to keep that nice if you can. Extra tie rods and any extra arms or weak points of your chassis are a good thing to bring as well. A set of toe plates and tape measures is also a good investment to make sure your toe in and toe out is good after any off-road excursions or tie rod changes. For yourself, you should make sure to bring plenty of water and some healthy snacks. You'll be burning a lot of calories changing wheels and driving, so make sure you are fueling your body with actual nutrition and not a bunch of junk food. Sunscreen is also a good idea so you don't look like a lobster the next day. You can actually enjoy your drift weekend. Those are some tips and tricks for you guys to get started with drifting. If you have any questions, drop a comment down below and we'll make sure to answer them. Really appreciate you guys watching. Thanks again.